Listen carefully, because this moment matters. Right now, while you're hearing these words, most people are waiting for the perfect opportunity, waiting for motivation, waiting for someone to believe in them. But here's the truth. The people who rise in life are not the ones who wait. They are the ones who decide. Your rise doesn't begin when the world finally notices you. Your rise begins the moment you decide you are no longer willing to live below your potential. The truth is, nobody is coming to rescue your dreams. Nobody is coming to hand you the life you want. The responsibility, the power, and the opportunity are already in your hands. Because every extraordinary story begins with an ordinary person who makes one powerful decision. Today I start, not tomorrow, not next year. Now, your rise begins the moment you stop blaming your past. It begins when excuses lose their power over you. It begins when discipline becomes stronger than comfort. And here's what most people never realize. Your rise will not be loud at the beginning. It will be quiet. It will look like early mornings when nobody is watching, late nights when quitting feels easier, small decisions that no one celebrates. But those quiet moments, those unseen battles, are exactly where great lives are built. Because rising isn't about luck. It's about standards. It's about courage. It's about showing up when every part of you wants to stop. And if you're listening to this right now, understand something powerful. This is not just another speech. This is your reminder that the life you want is still possible, but only if you choose to rise. And that choice starts today, because your rise begins now. Waiting feels safe, but safety has never been the birthplace of a man's rise. Many men grow up believing that the right moment will eventually arrive, the right opportunity, the right support, the right recognition. But the uncomfortable truth is that life rarely sends an invitation. The moment a man stops waiting for permission is the moment he begins stepping into responsibility. From a man's perspective, this is where identity starts to shift, from reacting to life to leading it. Men are often judged not by their intentions, but by their movement. Other men watch to see who steps forward when things are uncertain. Respect in the male world is rarely given to the one who waits the longest. It goes to the one who acts despite doubt. Action signals courage, and courage is the language men instinctively understand when they measure each other's strength. Women, on the other hand, often see something different when they look at a man who stops waiting. They don't see perfection. They see direction. Confidence grows not from having everything figured out, but from demonstrating the willingness to move forward. A man who decides to act, even imperfectly, communicates stability, purpose, and leadership in ways that words alone never could. One decision can quietly redraw the direction of a man's life. Most people imagine success as a series of grand moments, but in reality, it begins with a single internal shift, the moment a man decides who he will be. Before that decision, life feels reactive, shaped by circumstances, opinions, and fears. After that decision, something changes inside. The focus moves from what life is doing to him to what he is choosing to build. Men are deeply wired to respond to commitment. When a man makes a firm decision, it becomes a psychological anchor that organizes his behavior. Other men sense this shift quickly. In male environments, whether in work, competition, or leadership, clarity of decision signals strength. It communicates that this man has drawn a line within himself. And once that line is drawn, hesitation begins to lose its influence. Women often read this same decision through a different lens. They don't necessarily look for perfection or flawless execution. They look for certainty of direction. A man who has made a clear decision carries a different energy in the way he speaks, plans, and moves through challenges. That certainty creates trust because decisive men project a sense of purpose that feels steady, intentional, and grounded in responsibility. Standards quietly define the level at which a man chooses to live. Many men focus on goals, more money, more success, more recognition. But goals are temporary targets. Standards are different. Standards are the rules a man refuses to break with himself. The moment a man raises his standards, his rise begins to take shape because his daily choices start aligning with a higher version of who he believes he should be. Men instinctively measure one another through standards even when it is never spoken out loud. In male psychology, respect grows around consistency, discipline, and accountability. A man who holds himself to higher standards signals strength to other men because it shows control over impulses and comfort. Standards reveal whether a man can lead himself before he attempts to lead anything else. Women often interpret those same standards as signals of reliability and character. They observe how a man handles pressure, how he keeps his word, and whether his actions match what he claims to value. High standards create a sense of stability because they show that a man is guided by principles rather than moods. The presence of strong standards often communicates maturity, direction, and a quiet confidence that does not depend on external validation. The battles that shape a man's rise are rarely the ones the world can see. Most victories that truly matter happen in silence, when a man chooses discipline over comfort, responsibility over escape, and growth over ego. These are the invisible battles fought in the early morning when no one is watching, in the quiet moments when doubt whispers that slowing down would be easier. The man who rises learns that progress is built in these private decisions long before it becomes visible to anyone else. Men understand this language of quiet struggle, even when it is never spoken. In male psychology, respect often grows around endurance. Other men recognize the signals of someone who continues to show up despite pressure, fatigue, or uncertainty. Strength, in this sense, is not loud or dramatic. It is consistent. Winning the invisible battles teaches a man control over his impulses, his frustrations, and the distractions that try to pull him away from his path. Women often perceive these unseen efforts differently, but just as clearly. What stands out is not the struggle itself, but the steadiness it creates in a man's character. Quiet discipline shows reliability, emotional control, and purpose qualities that communicate maturity and a sense of direction through actions rather than words. Pressure is not the signal that a man is breaking. It is often the signal that he is growing. Many men are taught to see pressure as something negative, something to escape from. Yet the truth is that every man who rises eventually learns to reinterpret pressure. Instead of viewing it as a threat, he begins to see it as evidence that responsibility is increasing and expectations are rising. Men are psychologically wired to respond to challenge. Throughout history, pressure has been the environment where men tested their capability, resilience, and leadership. When pressure appears, whether in work, competition, or responsibility, it creates a moment of in-turn. Our choice, one path leads to avoidance and self-doubt, while the other path leads to growth. The men who rise are not the ones who never feel pressure. They are the ones who learn how to convert it into focus, discipline, and determination. Other men recognize this transformation almost instantly. In male environments, pressure reveals character faster than comfort ever could. When a man stays composed while carrying responsibility, he sends a signal to those around him that he can be trusted with more. Strength in this context is not about having all the answers. It is about maintaining direction even when the weight increases. Women often interpret this same ability as emotional stability. When a man handles pressure without collapsing into frustration or avoidance, it communicates control and maturity. The ability to remain steady under stress creates a sense of safety and leadership, showing that challenges do not weaken his direction, but instead sharpen his focus and sense of purpose. Becoming the person who rises begins with a shift in identity. Many men focus on changing their circumstances, earning more, achieving more, gaining recognition. But real transformation starts deeper than that. A man's rise truly begins when he changes the way he sees himself. When a man decides that he is no longer the person who hesitates, avoids responsibility, or settles for comfort, his behavior begins to follow that new identity. Men naturally organize their lives around the roles they believe they carry. In male psychology, identity is strongly connected to purpose and responsibility. When a man believes he is a leader, a builder, or a protector, his daily actions begin to reflect those beliefs. The process of rising is not about perfection, it is about alignment. A man slowly becomes the person he repeatedly chooses to act like, especially in the moments when nobody else is why. King. Other men observe this change through behavior rather than words. In male environments, credibility grows when actions remain consistent over time. A man who shows discipline, keeps his commitments, and takes ownership of his responsibilities sends a powerful signal to those around him. Respect among men rarely comes from titles or status alone. It grows from the quiet evidence that a man can lead himself before expecting to lead others. Women often recognize this transformation through emotional and behavioral stability. When a man develops a strong sense of identity, his decisions become clearer and his direction becomes easier to trust. Confidence begins to show not through arrogance, but through calm certainty. The presence of purpose changes the way he communicates, plans, and handles difficulty, creating a sense of steadiness that reflects maturity and long-term vision.